Hey guys, welcome back. This is day 10. We've made it. All right, we're going to look at My Romance. I decided to look at a piece of music that was in the key of C. I thought that might be a little bit easier for us all, including myself. And as we get to know the diminished sixth scale, and as you get to know, a lot better, you'll be able to work all this in multiple keys. But hey, let's look at My Romance. It's a great tune anyway. And so I'm using the new real book version of this. I think the real book version of it is in B flat. Correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody knows. But this one's in the key of C anyway, so we'll go through it, kind of line by line. If you can get your hands on a copy of the real book or a fake book of some sort, that's a great way of, learning a bunch of different tunes really quickly. I'd encourage you to do that. All right, so let's just really recap just quickly. Now we could do a lot with all the different keys, but we're just going to stick to thinking about what we're going to do with the key of C with the diminished sixth scale. So what I mean by that is, when we play like an A7 dominant or something, an A dominant, that references the key of D. We're not going to worry about, doing some stuff with that as well. We'll just stick with, when it's appropriate, doing something interesting in the key of C, and we'll just play regular chords after that, or we'll talk about some other reharmonizations and stuff like that. And we're going to look at today a bit more improvising with the diminished sixth scale as well. All right. Now you can play My Romance as a ballad or an up-tempo kind of a piece as well, I reckon. We're going to kind of just do it as whatever we feel like it as we go. Let's get into it anyway. All right, so here's the chords, C, F major 7. All right, that's kind of the standard chords there, right? Okay, let's see what we can do with that first line with the chords to start with. All right, so you probably want to start with some kind of standard C right there, C major 7 or a major 9 or a 6 or something like that. I thought maybe at the beginning here we could kind of go, you know how we were doing the chords, and if you remember we did the chords as a 6, then the diminished, then the 6, then the diminished, then the 6, then the diminished, then the, etc., right, until we got up. So it was basically two types of chord. It was either the C6 or the diminished 7, right? Being the diminished 7 of D, F, A, flat, or B, all right? The other one that we were looking at was when we're using the 7th and we end up with the D minor 7, flat and 5 there. We've got this beautiful 4th shape. This is if we're following the G, going to the A flat every time, right? And we basically can kind of see that we've got some kind of variation of a consonant chord of some sort that sort of belongs fairly naturally to the key of C, and then some kind of dominant chord, some sort of flattened ninth sort of chord that we can kind of use, so with variations of it, right? So if we think about that, maybe we can use some of the sixths and the diminished chords to start with, And if we do, that kind of works nicely before you get to the F major 7. If you go, right, I'm basically going up like this. You can do it quickly. Something like that. Kind of sounds kind of cool, doesn't it, All right, the E minor 7, maybe you want to do that 4th chord there. Part of the, which if you didn't do it in that particular voicing, would sound quite different too. If we put the E up the top there. I like it in that voicing there. It kind of really works nicely, I think. Or the 6, the diminished, the 6, then you could go the diminished. You can kind of get away with that, I think. The 4th chord. Right, now here's a diminished chord, of course, and Remember, a diminished chord is kind of like a flat ninth chord, right? So you can see there's an E flat diminished 7, or F sharp, or an A or a C diminished 7. If you put a D down the bottom, it's a D7 flat 9, or a B7 flat 9, or an A flat. So there's a whole bunch of different options you've got there, thinking of it like that. But if you want to then, so if you think of it as like just a dominant chord, your options are kind of endless, because as soon as you think dominant, when you're thinking about extensions and alterations, you've got so many options. With a dominant chord, flat 9 or sharp 9 or a 9. Do you add in the sharp 11? Do you add in the a sharpened fifth or a flattened fifth, which is the same as sharp 11, of course? Do you add in the 13? There's so many options you've got when you're working with a dominant chord. So now you can see here, if I go across here, you can see that the next chord is a D minor. So an A dominant would work really well here, right? An E flat dominant would work really well here as well. Something like that. But your options are lots. You can do a B dominant, right? Because that works with the chord. The E minor, the B dominant, and there if I just changed it to a B9, it's probably not very interesting as a B9, It's probably better as the flat 9. It sounds more kind of right, It's a bit closer to the E flat diminished. It's really close, isn't it? There's a D minor 7. Could do the D minor 7 with the flattened ninth, which when you go to that G7, you can add in that there as well if you wanted to, in the melody, right? So you've got the D minor 7, all that. And I might go with this chord. Now this was, do you remember when we did our chords as we're going up, this was the 4th variation, right? Which speaks of a G7. There's your 7 and 3. There's 13, flat 9. It's just a great voicing as well for that chord, I think, Or you can do it with one hand and kind of add it in there as well. I'm going to just go with an E7 sharp 5 with a sharp 9 at the top there. Just the melody kind of lends itself to that. All right, here's A minor. Let's go on to the next one. A minor with in one of the fake books, I think I remember, the chord was A minor, and there was doing like the major 7, and then dominant 7 was like, so A minor, just as a triad, A minor with a major 7, A minor 7, then an A dominant of some sort, right? A lot of people do that. Here it's got like a 1-5, like 1, if we're in the key of A for a bit, right? There's the 5. I think I like the E7 better. Now, I think if we're talking about some of the things we've been talking about in recent videos, you could do E7 then G7. I think that would work really nicely, right? Maybe not, I don't know. Maybe a different voicing would work. Let me know if you find a voicing that works there. All right, here's back to that C major 7, C7 there, or we use the tritone substitute and go with an F sharp there. All right, the B flat. It's kind of like the back door to C, right? Or you could do like the G, obviously, right? Works there. Maybe G minor works better. Maybe. All right, well, there's some ideas anyway to get you started on that in terms of the chords, but I want to get into some improvising, so let's do that. All right, so we might, let's look at the B section, why not? It starts off kind of the same, but at least the next section is a little bit different. All right. So remember, now the scale has that A flat in it. So you might want to practice different ways to play it, or we're going up to the G, or from the A. That'll kind of help you. Also, remember we did that little exercise with. All right, so if we kind of use a little bit of that going on, all right? So why don't we go with the beginning, C major 7, and then instead of the F major 7, let's go with an F diminished, right? Or any of those diminished, right? So we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. If we go up the arpeggio. I don't know, what do you think about that, right? So why don't we do the 6th chord, go to the diminished for the F, all right, so. And then we go to the 6th chord for the E minor. Then, oops, then go back to, and then, now I wouldn't want to do that the whole song, but it's kind of interesting for the first, you know, line, I think, you know, to kind of swap between that major 6 and diminished 7th kind of a sound. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. All right, that's kind of the first line. What's some other options there that might work well? 2 and 3 and 4 and. Use that A flat a bit. See, I'm using that A flat a few times. It's kind of a little bit more scalic rather than using the arpeggios a little bit there. What if you're using thirds and going up and kind of changing as you're going 2 and 3 and 4? That kind of sounds cool too, doesn't it? The G sharp, the A flat, kind of really brings in that interesting thing instead of just going, you know. Kind of brings something else a little bit interesting in there. I think the C sharp there, I was just getting from, in my mind, thinking of a dominant A, right? Before I go to the D minor. All right, let's go to the next little bit there. So if you think the A minor, you know, and we're adding in the. All right, 2 and 3 A minor. My F is so out of tune. I really need to change that note. Let's look at the F major 7 chord. Oh, this has got that really nice bass line. I always like playing B flat here because, and probably I like playing an E down the bottom here, whether I'm playing like a just continued F major, maybe an F. I like that fourths kind of sound. No, the A flat's not going to work there, is it, because of the melody? B minus 7 with the flat and 5th there. What voicing would work nicely there? Then B flat. And it ends up with a sharp 11. So that kind of sounds nice. You can do like a B flat with a C chord on top. Can give a nice sound, especially if you want to kind of bring it down as you go. Maybe the octaves there, you can kind of come down and then onto that A minor, right? Now remember the A minor with the Barry Harris diminished 6 scale has that G sharp in it sometimes, right? You might want to use that. I'm not a fan of typically a minor chord with a major 7. I just don't like the sound of it that much. Now, you might disagree with me, and I love that sound. I don't. However, I don't mind it. In fact, I do like it if it's a moving part, you know, if the voice leading works, you know. So for me, that's no issue, right? But just as a chord by itself, for me, it's a little bit too harsh. It's like Dr. Evil has just walked into the room in Austin Powers. That's kind of what's going on, right? You know, right? With the shape of my head, maybe I could get away with a little bit of Dr. Evil. The A flat chord. You could do as a diminished chord as well if you wanted to. Now remember, you can kind of, you know, swap between those diminished chords really quickly, and you get some great kind of sounds there. I'm still getting used to that, you know. It's not something that I've played a lot of in that style. All right, let's move on to that last line here, get some other ideas for you guys to really have a crack at yourself, right? Now, what I do with my teaching anyway is that, and if this is your first video you've seen of me, or you've seen a couple of videos of my teaching, you might want to subscribe. But let me tell you about how I teach anyway, so then you can not subscribe if this is not for you. I'm not going to just kind of show you what to do and say, hey, put your fingers here, play here. I'm not interested in the bouncy ball that kind of follows along, so you kind of know exactly what to do. I want to teach you the principles. I want to teach you why it works, how it works, and then give you options for how you can apply that to your own playing. All right? I don't want it to be just, hey, here's something real quick to learn, go for it. I'm trying to teach you via this medium of YouTube, of course. I'm trying to teach you in a way that I would teach my real physical jazz students, which obviously I've got a bunch of those guys, So what I'm doing is I'm teaching you how to improvise. I'm teaching you how to play the right chords, and then you apply that into to your own playing. All right, that's a really important principle. Jazz is not about copying what other people do. We can learn from what other people do and get some ideas, but jazz is all about your expression, your voice, right? So you need to understand the principles of jazz and then apply it to your own playing. So you shouldn't sound like anybody else. Like, there might be some similarities, right? That you might sound like somebody else, but you shouldn't sound exactly the same. Me living in Australia and being a guy, I sound like a guy who comes from Australia, right? There's some similarities with me and 10 million other people, right? But I have my own voice, and if I give my a close friend of mine a phone call, they can pretty much work out who it is pretty quickly after I say hello, right? So because I've got my own voice, and I've got my own voice when I play the piano, and you should try and grab your own voice too. All right. Now, a lot of that is just listening, but learning the principles and then trying to apply that in a way that works for you is what's going to develop your musical voice. All right. So, anyway, what have we got? Let's try one of those other chords. What do we got? We got this. Oh, this one here. That's a beautiful chord as well, right? So it's kind of the fourth chord, but it's not not fully. You got a major third at the top. So. You can change, obviously, that around into a different way. You can kind of play like, if you're playing the. That sounds nice, doesn't it? That's quite a nice voicing for the. You might want to move it around a little bit. What if I go with major? Well, they're all majors here, aren't they? Except for that's the diminished one. If I'm kind of voicing on top of those, if I'm voicing there, with a major 6 or a diminished 7th in between, right? It's going to be that, major, major, what was the last one? F. It's probably too many majors in a row, in my opinion. So I'd be more inclined to stick with something more normal, like just think of it as a D minor 7. Maybe change the next chord. You could go with a D flat major 7. That works really nicely. It's kind of like a G chord, right? In some ways, but we're still in. It'd be more like a G chord if we were doing a B natural, right? But having the major 7 of the D flat kind of means it kind of works a little bit more like D minor 7, sort of functions in the same way because the guide tones are the same. Here's D minor 7, here's D flat major 7. It kind of functions the same way. You can hear how that kind of works, right? So that works nicely. Now, of course, it's got the A flat in there. There's D minor 7. I really like that, So you could D minor 7, play that D flat 7. You could play an E flat because that's the 9, and then you go into the A. So maybe just a G7 chord of some sort. But then you could do a diminished there if you wanted to, and that low B kind of works nicely. If you're going to the E chord, you could think of it as like, sometimes we do instead of the 1 before the turnaround, you can do instead of 1, 6, 2, 5. A lot of people do 3, 6, 2, 5. What we're doing. Well, that was, I think we had something like that. D minor 7. And then, the diminished, yeah, that's nice. C6, just go to an A7, D7, G7. All right, so improvising that last line, there's a lot of C. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... pretty much just playing white notes and adding in that A flat, which gives it a little bit of colour, I think. I would probably, if I wasn't thinking diminished 6 scale, I'd probably be adding in some other things there, but hey, we're doing a diminished 6 kind of idea thing, so ups. Yeah, that kind of works nicely, doesn't it? All right, I'm interested to see what you've come up with after 10 days of having a go at the diminished 6 scale. I hope you've learned something during this time, and hey, thanks for sticking in there and having a go and having a practice session with me on this. I'm going to keep going with the diminished 6 scale for myself, and kind of develop a little bit more understanding of that, and I'll let you know about a few different things that I can think of as time goes by. All right, so we're going to get some other stuff in a second. If there's anything in particular you'd like to see covered in one of the next tutorials, then hey, leave a comment below, and that would be great, and I'll have a look at that and see what we can do. If there's a particular tune you want to do, or a particular idea, principle of jazz, then I'd be happy to have a look at that and see how we go. All right, guys, all the best. I'll see you real soon.